Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse and to another Warehouse interview. Tonight, I'd like to welcome June Millington to the show. She was in the band Fanny back in the 70s. She is changing children's lives today. Ashley's here. Angie Moon is here. Let's get ready. Let's talk to June. Let's
serving up riffs hotter than Hellfire Chili with a beer chaser. Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse and to the Warehouse interview. Tonight is kind of a special night. We have some rock royalty here because let's think about it. If you know the band Fanny from the early 70s, first album, Fanny came out, what was the first album came out in what year? 69?
There was a false, I don't know how none of us knows how it happened, but there was a false release in Canada.
Okay.
Version is a collector's item. I actually have a copy. We didn't even know what happened. We were in Canada doing a show and someone mentioned, we went to a radio station and they played it. And we're like, where did you get that? So that's why on the, what is that, 4 CD collection, there are two versions of the same song, like Charity Ball. There's a first version and a second version.
Yeah. So anyway, June Millington tonight. I'm just happy for you to be here. So if you know the group Fanny, this is where it all started. You guys, when you came onto the scene, you guys formed in 69, and it was you, June, and your sister Jean, and you were born in the Philippines back in the day, and then you immigrated here to California, in like 1961 or something, roughly?
61, yes. Yeah.
I always like to ask this for everybody that comes on the show. Now, when you were in the Philippines, or maybe in the States, what was the first thing that you heard or prompted you to want to go into music? Or, a lot of musicians, they hear the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, and that just opened up the world. I'm just wondering a little bit about your background and how that all came about for you and your sister.
Well, we were playing ukuleles, Jean and I, when we were younger, let's say from 9 to 13 for me. And then we switched to acoustic guitars right before getting on the ship because I heard a girl playing acoustic guitar at our school and I completely flipped out. I just knew that was for me. But the thing is, when you say that Fanny started in 1969, you're actually skipping over the Spelts, which was our high school band. And if you want to understand Fanny, this is what I always say. If you want to understand Fanny, you have to understand the Spelts because we were basically a dance band, like Motown and R&B mostly. And the first song that I heard here in the U.S. that completely freaked me out, I mean, it really did freak me out, was Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow by the Shirelles. I was completely blown away by the way those girls sang the song, because they don't just kind of sing it, they just throw it out of their entire face. It's coming out of their nose, out of the top of their mouth. I mean, it's incredible. It's like gypsy singing. And plus with all the strings and everything, and a Phil Spector production. So that completely blew me away. And after that, of course, there was no end to the hits that were blowing us all away. I mean, as kids our age, so we're like 15, 16, 17, starting bands in Sacramento. Plus, at the same time, psychedelia was already moving in San Francisco, which was just an hour and a half away. So we were at the right place at the right time, I feel, because we were exposed to all that. In fact, in 1968, we opened for Sly Stone up in Lake Tahoe, and there was hardly anyone there. That was before they were a hit, but we already knew their songs because somehow we'd heard them. And then he was hanging out in the studio with us in LA when we did our first album because they were recording at the same studio. So I feel like there were a lot of things that happened in a kind of a magical way to bring us and to bring me in particular together with a whole bunch of people. And now I'm going to move into 1975 when I met Chris Williamson and I got involved in the women's music thing, which is a whole other huge phenomena. So I really got exposed to a lot. And of course, we recorded at Apple Studio in London in 1970. That was the last album that we did with Richard Perry, but we did record with their engineer, Jeff Emmerich. And he was totally fantastic. I mean, I learned so much from him. And every night after we were done, the rest of the whole gang would get in the limousine, go back, and I just kind of sit there, and he'd go play the piano. And after about 15 minutes, he'd come to me and say, okay, which meant I could ask him any question I wanted. And mostly it was about the Beatles, but he was also telling us Beatles stories while we were recording. And then, of course, we met them. So,
wow. Any particular Beatles stories that stick out in your memory?
well, the last time I saw John was when he was recording his final album, because my brother-in-law, Earl Slick, was playing with him. So I went to the studio, and he wanted to meet me, actually. He said, he told Slick to call and tell me to come over. So, and that was really enjoyable, because I realized that he works in the studio a lot of he had the same patterns of working. For example, he and I were talking, and then without even missing a beat, he just reached over and pushed the button, said to the band, top players, he said, I know you can play, now play the song. I knew exactly what he was saying, because they had started to jam a little bit. It was Watching the Wheels Go Round and Round, which I didn't even know the name of the song. But he wanted them to play John Lennon. He didn't want them to play their version of John Lennon, if you know what I mean. It may seem like a slight difference, but it's all the difference in the world. What separates John Lennon from everyone else? It's, je ne sais quoi.
100%.
You say that the Beatles are a huge influence on you. Can you tell me, like, at what moment, like, you got into them, and then, like, what it felt to just meet them?
The second we heard them, the first song of theirs that we covered as the Spelts was No Reply. And I just, we just loved everything that they wrote and they did. And we tried to cover their songs along with our, we did Do You Believe in Magic, for example. We did The Letter. We tried to do Alfie. That was hard. But every song that was and I don't know if you were listening to radio back then, but every week there was a new hit, and it was fantastic. My Girl, Rescue Me. We played all those songs.
Well, yeah, but back in the day, everything was so still. Well, you had the 50s rock and roll, and everything was progressing so fast. And of course, once the Beatles hit the scene, but look, what the Beach Boys were doing, you mentioned the Love and Spoonful, all those bands, it was such a great creative time.
And also, like, your cover of Hey Bulldog was amazing. I love the cover of Hey Bulldog. Incredible.
Yeah, we loved Hey Bulldog, and we made it our song, and everybody says we did it better than the Beatles, and I have to agree, because for them, that was just a throwaway song. But, he wrote that because he liked the, excuse me, he liked the 007 themes. So he just wanted something that was reminiscent of 007.
Yeah, but it's a fantastic track, though. Ashley, you got something? I'm just trying.
Sure. Hey, Jen, tell us a little bit about the Institution of Musical Aha. How did the company formed, and is that something you wanted to do out of there, or did it just happen on the spur of the moment?
Well, this is the only one in the world. It's a nonprofit institute for women and girls in music that we started in California in 1986. And it wasn't until we moved here to Goshen in 2001 that we were able to start our rock and roll girls camps, which we do every summer. We have 3 this summer, plus we have a recording program because we built recording studios here. So it's a place where women can come and get information. You're able, if you come to rock camp, you can borrow equipment. You're actually supported in quite a number of ways. You can ask, how do I survive on the road questions, which is a very serious question. And there have been quite a number of groups that have started out of here, and single artists who are, in the pantheon of what you can see out there and hear out there. One of them is Kristen Ford, and she's with Ani DeFranco's label now. So, and I mean, the songs that have been written here at camp and by the bands that have started from our camps are really top notch. They're incredible. So I'm really proud of the job we've done. And this is for all of time. IMA exists for, 7 generations ahead and so on. And the girls who are here now, we just did a gig this weekend at a festival close to here. And the girls who sang with me, they all know that they're taking ownership of IMA. And that makes them feel really good, So they're here a lot. They're learning from us, and they know that they're going to inherit this space, which is basically 30 acres and a barn that was, converted to a workshop / performance center / recording studio. So it's a pretty big outfit, and the girls who come to our camps have to spend the night because it's not a pickup, it's a sleepover. So preteen is 5 days and teen is 10 days, and the parents cannot stop by. They lose contact with their girls. I call it the magical queendom because it is. It's their queendom, and there's a lot of magic that happens when you're just thrown in on yourself with just a few other people, and you see what happens,
Yeah.
Is that something Is it something you wish you had growing up?
Yes, and a lot of people who walk through the doors of the barn, the first thing they do, the first thing that happens, they get tears in their eyes. And the second thing that happens is they say, I wish that this had been here when I was growing up. And they mean that sincerely. It's the only one in the world where there's a lot of rock and roll girls camps, but they don't own their own property. And we do, and that makes all the difference in the world. We control the parking, we control the food, we control the programs. We have a lot of shows here. People come who are on the road and they play here. And we have workshops and so on.
Yeah. Is Bonnie Raitt part of that organisation as well, June?
Pardon me?
Is Bonnie Raitt part of that organisation with you as well?
Yeah, she was on the very first advisory board. Have you seen the documentary, Fanny, The Right to Rock? Yes. So you've seen Bonnie say, well, June is the first person I know who really thought about the future, about girls. What was going to happen to them? If they didn't have support that I knew that we could provide, you just had to really do it, which is a hard job. It's 24/7 what we do here. But it's so worth it. And to see the girls as, smiles when they get something, like I teach the afternoon portion of the camp, and I do 2 things. I do music as a second language, which is pretty all-encompassing. And then I also do foremothers. So I introduce them to the women who came before, who contributed to, we're standing on their shoulders, and that's so important to know. And it's important to know that, for instance, Ella Fitzgerald couldn't walk in the front door of the club she was playing in Las Vegas because she's Black. She had to go in the back, or they couldn't just stop and eat any place or stay at a hotel, carte blanche, they had to just stay in certain places or they would very well get killed.
Mm-hmm.
So I want them to know that and to appreciate that, and they do.
That's fantastic. That's really good to hear, actually. Fantastic.
Would you say that music, like the people who make rock music now, do you think that there's more diversity now in music as opposed to the past, like as in the people who make it?
I don't really think there's more diversity. I mean, when you think of what was coming out since 1966, for example, you have the young bloods with, come on, people, smile on your brother. You have, right? I mean, you have The Letter, you have Alfie, you have Do You Believe in Magic? I mean, there was so much stuff coming out. I can't imagine a more diverse time. I think maybe jazz is coming more into the forefront of what's popular because it's being inserted, which is great. But in terms of, just the amount of groups and the variety of the music, Inagata Davida, where did that come from?
Well, that was probably a lot of acid. That's where that came from.
Well, when we started, the Spelts did a backyard gig with the Surfaris. Do you remember his drum part? He did like a drum little thing.
Wipeout? Yeah.
Wipeout. That's exactly right. And he was playing with no shoes. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. And I remember the first time, we saw, well, there's so many bands. It's hard to choose. There were so many bands coming out in the late 60s, early 70s. It's just really daunting to try to list them all. And we played with a lot of them. We did. We played with Steppenwolf, the Staple Singers, But, one of the reasons why the Beatles, I feel like, had such a great sound was they listened to those all-girl groups and they did those songs, and they learned those backup parts. That is all part of pop music, and I think that's partly what set them apart as an all-boy band. They did those background harmonies, and they did them so well, You listen to other groups, and they just don't have that complexity. They don't have the completion of the sound without those harmonies. I mean, they were really incredible on that level, and they weren't afraid of it. But it's not that easy to play. I mean, Motown may sound easy, but it's not easy to really pull it off. So I feel like we were experts in that field. And then when we got to LA and there was a switch up and Addie left and Nikki joined the band, then we got more into rock and roll. And I think that's what the industry wanted from girls. They wanted to see girls play rock because we were held up as like the standard of girls playing, And so they wanted us to compete on the boys' level. The boys weren't playing Motown. We had to go to them and play rock.
I see.
So one of my questions is,
motivated, because I guess that's what I'm saying.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
So it was more the motivation from the label for that transition, or no?
I wouldn't say it was the label. No, I think part of it actually was Nikki. She was really into rock in a certain way. And we just got kind of pulled into it. And yes, I mean, our producer, Richard Perry, whom you must know is one of the best producers ever. I mean, he just died last year, but he was amazing. And he was producing Nilsson at the same time as he was producing us in LA. And then when we went to London, he was producing Carly's album that has You're So Vain. In fact, I heard the basic for that up in his room because he would always play me the basics. He would have a record, he would have a vinyl copy and he'd say, what do you think? And to tell you the truth, the only thing I heard on that vinyl was You're So Vain. I turned to Richard. I said, Richard, that's your hit. I mean, I knew it. But you had a question, did you?
Yeah. So my question was, you talk a lot about how you want to teach the girls in your camp about the foremothers. Who would you say are your foremothers as a musician?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't hear of Sister Rosetta Tharpe until the early 2000s. And that is a shame. I mean, of course, I did grow up in the Philippines, so I didn't know about the blues, but I'd been here in the U.S. and no one mentioned her name. I would say all the Motown people, well, of which there were a lot, and also, what's his name, who came out in Memphis. He played on all the Sam and Dave songs, for example. What's his name? He just died recently.
Donald Duck Dunn?
Steve Cropper?
Well, Donald Duck Dunn didn't play guitar, but he actually co-wrote Steve Cropper. Steve Cropper had a big influence on me in terms of his guitar playing because it was so specific, It was sparse, it was specific. It had a lot of intention, Dun, 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 dun. He just kept it simple, but it was integral to what was going on with the drums and bass. Incredible stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One of my questions also regarding kind of identity stuff is, how would you say your Filipino heritage has influenced you as a musician?
I don't think it really influenced us at all because in the Philippines, we were listening to top 40. We weren't listening. You know, the music in the Philippines is really more or less Spanish Malayan. You know, it's not at all like what pop and rock is at all. So I don't think it influences, although I must say I started playing with Ruby Ibarra starting last year. She has a song Bakunawa, and she won the Tiny Desk Award for 2025, and I went on the road with them, and it was so easy to play with them, in part because of the commonality of all being Filipino. You know, there's just something about it. There's a certain understanding, the way you laugh at things and what you laugh at and stuff, or what you eat, you know. But I don't think it influenced the music at all.
Okay. My first discovery of Fanny was over here in Australia. We have a show called SBS, and on SBS there was a program on there called Beat Club, and they have all sorts of acts on there, and that's where I saw you guys on there, and you guys killed her on that show. How did you guys end up being on Beat Club?
Well, I'm not sure. You know, everybody did Beat Club, it seemed to me. We went over to record Fanny Hill in 1970 at Apple. And before we even got to the studio, we flew to Luxembourg, did that radio show, changed planes, and went on to Germany and did Beat Club. Now, I must say that Beat Club was like just another day at the office for us. That is how we played. So when people freak out and go, oh my God, Beat Club, it's so great. Every gig we did was that, you know. I know I felt like in particular, but we all knew that we were carrying the torch forward. Whoever was going to come in the future, we were carrying it for them. And, you know, as the lead guitar player, man, that was a pressurized spot, you know, because everyone was looking for me to make a mistake. And so I couldn't make a mistake. I didn't make a mistake. If you see Midnight Hour, where we do Last Night I Had a Dream, and I'm playing slide with tape loops. Remember tape loops? Yeah. And I do not make any mistakes, and it's pretty darn great. Everything we did, all the shows we did, we even did the Tonight Show, although that got taped over because they were taping over their shows up until a certain year, and we happened to fall into that. We played that in 1970. But that was just another day at the office for us. That thing on French TV that everyone flips out over. Well, the sound guy was so bad. I couldn't hear the rest of the band, or I couldn't hear me. Maybe I wasn't coming through them, or something was really bad. And so we had to start playing Young and Dumb. Oh no, was it Badge maybe? And all of a sudden the sound clicked in for me, but I was really pissed. So I think particularly fiery because I was just so upset at them for not getting me help, you know, because when you're in a band like that, you don't want to just hear yourself. You want to hear the whole thing. You want to see what's happening, you know, fill in with your own sauce or whatever, you know, and that's really important. So I can't emphasize enough how not only was that special Beat Club and the BBC and all that, but that's how we played. We opened for Slade, you know, I mean.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. We played Germany with Slade. We played the US with Slade, you know. There are hardly any bands from the late 60s to the 70s that we did not play with.
You opened for the Kinks and Procol Harum. What was it like opening for them?
Well, they didn't really talk to us. All I remember was that it was at the Santa Monica Civic, and the sound check was really hard. But, you know, we were fans of theirs, so of course we enjoyed listening to them, but they didn't really talk to us, you know. Like those girls, what the hell are they doing?
Oh my God.
Well, I'm just curious about what during that whole time period in the early 70s, late 60s, what was the biggest challenge for you guys being an all-female band? I mean, sexism, racism, jokes about the band.
I would say one word, misogyny. That's it. That's what kept us from going over the wall. That misogyny thing was impervious to anything that we did. And we were really good. I thought that Fanny Hill, that album should have had at least one single that worked, but it didn't. It had Ain't That Peculiar, which has over 1 million views now on Beat Club. You know, it had Hey Bulldog, it had Knock on My Door. I mean, it had so many great songs. And still, and people now say, well, how was that I missed you? That I don't know how you missed us, because we played all the time. We played colleges, we played clubs, we did every single rock show. And like I mentioned, we even did the Tonight Show. How did you miss us? Where were you? I have no idea. Because
You were everywhere.
I mean, we did the Sonny and Cher show, for God's sake. You know?
Wow. My favorite album, actually, Fanny Hill.
Pardon me?
That's my favorite album. I've re-listened to all the box sets.
Oh, great. Yeah. I mean,
And
it's hard for me to pick out my favorite, but there's so much great stuff on there. You know, it has Think About the Children, which is my song, and I adore that song still, you know, and it really shows me how I was thinking about the future, about the children of the future. And here we are at IMA because we are taking care of the children. There is no other place where the girls can come year after year, and it's the same people. You know, there's a continuity. The food is cooked here. The barn smells the same. You know, and that's one of the things that the girls say to me when they return. No, they visit us a lot. They don't just come to the camps, and they'll say, there's two things that they'll say. The first thing they say is, oh, I'm home. And they mean that sincerely, I'm home. And the second thing they say is, it smells the same. And I protect that smell. You know, I'm deaf in one ear. I've always been deaf in one ear. So my sense of smell is very much heightened. So the smell of the barn, we put in bamboo floors in the studios, and I can smell that bamboo, you know, it's fantastic.
Would you say that homophobia was much of a factor in kind of like how you were treated or anything?
I don't know. I didn't pay attention to that, to tell you the truth. Homophobia just paled in comparison to misogyny.
Mm.
You know, the first thing that would happen usually, and this is starting in 1964 when we started the Spelts, the first thing automatically was the sneers. That wasn't homophobia. That was pure misogyny. And so they would sneer at us, the boys. The girls would kind of hang back. They wouldn't sneer at us so much. But then we would start to play, and after the first song, they were all in love with us because they realized they were wrong. And they were enjoying themselves. They jumped out on the dance floor and they were dancing. That's what they wanted, you know, and we provided that. We gave them joy. I don't think too many people were thinking about homophobia. I wasn't, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter to me if you knew that I was gay or not, because I just figured it out for myself.
Did you have much of a coming out story?
No, not really. It's not anything, you know. I feel like there are a lot of people who have amazing coming out stories, but I really don't. I just like sort of realized it, you know, over a couple of years. And it was a big surprise. I mean, I had a boyfriend in the Spelts when we played in 1966 all summer at a club outside of Reno. And I had a boyfriend whom I had met the year before. Gene and I sang at the restaurant at the top of the tram at Heavenly Valley. I don't know if you know what that means or feels like, but it had just been built. So you ride the tram, you go to this restaurant, and it was like a candlelight dinner restaurant. It was high class, and all the guys who worked there were from a fraternity from, I think, Seattle or Portland. And so, of course, we got into, you know, stuff with them, and it was a lot of fun. But it never even crossed my mind. I didn't even know that there were gay people. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it seems kind of weird, but I just really didn't even think about it.
Just off your radar. Mother's Pride came out in 1973. What was why did you step away from the band after that record?
I mean, I think it was mostly because I knew I didn't have a real life, and I knew that I couldn't find there's a way to learn about being an authentic human being. And you're not going to learn that in LA. You're just not. And what scared me was it wasn't like I thought of myself, oh, I got to learn how to be an authentic human being. I knew I had to learn how to grow up, and that was not going to happen in LA. And not only that, we done 4 albums and they were great. And the public was not responding to it in a way. I didn't even get paid for gigs. Our creditors were following us in London, trying to collect their money from our managers. So it wasn't working on that level. Plus, they were making us wear clothes that were made by a designer. And I didn't like that because I knew that we were great shoppers. And the clothes that we wore up until 1973, everything you see were clothes that we picked. And it was an affront to me. I just kind of felt like, oh, our record company doesn't see us. They don't really see us. They don't get the essential thing. And if we don't have that backup, plus I wasn't growing up, essentially what I had to do was I had to get to the Buddhist teachings. I was reading about Buddhism, but Buddhism is a very serious endeavor. So when I left Fanny in 73, I ended up in Woodstock in 74. I was in a summer house in the winter in Long Island, and I listened to Stevie Wonder and listened and watched the waves. But I did end up in Woodstock, and that's when I really started to grow. I mean, the band Orleans was just starting out there. I went to practically every gig they did. That song, ain't nobody gonna swoop my stride, ain't nobody gonna tear me down. The Striders were from Woodstock. I knew that band,
Break My Stride.
Huh?
It's the song Break My Stride.
Yeah, Break My Stride. So those were the kind of people that I was hanging out with in 1974, 75. And I was writing a lot of songs, and I was finally getting the teachings. I mean, I got them first through reading Shunryu Suzuki's teachings in a book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. But pretty soon I started to find teachers. And by 1981, I was in Kalashaka with His Holiness the Dalai Lama in Madison. And that was really a big turning point for me.
You also did a lot of production work after you left Fanny too, didn't you? For a while, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the first album that I saw Richard Perry, our producer, work on, because I would go to every session I could, whether it was him producing it or somebody else. Well, I saw him working with Ella Fitzgerald tracks that he had recorded in London. He was working on an Ella Fitzgerald album, and I saw him replace tracks that I just was completely blown away. I didn't know you could do that. If you have a click track and you have good players, you can do anything you want. And the second I realized that, I really got into the magic of recording, and I wanted to spend all my time in the studio learning about that. And it's endless. I mean, I'm still fascinated now. Recording stories are, just really great. Like Aretha Franklin's tune. Oh God, what is it? It's not coming to mind, but it was just a jam in the studio, and she just threw out the song they were working on, and they just continued the jam, Dum 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 dum. What a great track. So I love those kinds of stories, to know how a song began. I mean, that song was basically written in the studio, and of course, all the Beatles stories and Motown too. All the producers and the songwriters and the songs themselves had to be vetted. So every week there were all these songs that were presented to the committee, and they would vote on what songs would be released that week, or the story that back in the day, the Motown day, they would record the track, they would mix it, then they would make a vinyl. Someone would rush down to a radio station, they'd go to their radios, they run out to the parking lot, and they'd listen to it in their cars and see what it sounded like, So all those kinds of stories I find completely fascinating. The recording industry is such a big deal. I mean, I think that American music is our biggest export and our most important export. I mean, I know computers are really important, but I think music is our most authentic export that really represents the mixed culture, which of course, is being, sort of the mixed culture is being put down by the powers that be, but they're so wrong.
Yeah.
When you're
just
talking about
curious-
how the record label is taking control and telling you what to wear, it reminded me a lot of like what happened to Heart in the 80s.
Yeah.
What happened to who?
Heart and Nancy Wilson.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like they were like told in the 80s when they were making their comeback, okay, we're going to tell you what songs to perform and we're going to have these songwriters write songs for you, even though in the early years of Heart, they were taking a lot of control over their own material, being kind of the stars of the show. And then they were like, okay, now you have to wear this and you have to do these kinds of music videos. And it wasn't like, I think freedom is
I can
just...
imagine how frustrating that would be. I mean, I feel like Fanny's really lucky because we were never told what songs to do. Up until the time in 73, when they insisted that we have a designer, everything, all the music was chosen by us. And we would scour B-sides of singles to find songs that we wanted to record. So, for example, Young and Dumb is the B-side of an Ike and Tina Turner single. I forget what the single was, but you flip it over and you could find some gems. So that was a big part of what we did. We listened to B-sides.
That's fantastic. I do want to mention something that there has been a lot of resurgence now. We've got the documentary that's come out.
Yeah.
I should mention that. Fanny, the Right to Rock, the Fanny Walk the Earth album came out as well. New reissues. How do you feel, June, about all this, the Fanny story finally getting recognition after all these years?
It feels really comfortable because I don't have to lie about a thing. The actual story is more fantastic than anyone could imagine. You couldn't put together a more amazing story. So I feel really comfortable with it all, and I really appreciate all the people who write to me, like every day. People are writing me going, how did I not know of you before? Or I love you, or that kind of stuff. And I really like that. I never expected it to happen while I was still alive, and I expect a lot more will happen after I die. I mean, I am 78, but I just did a gig. So I love music so much. It's everything, it's, aside from a couple of other things like my partner and IMA, but it's everything in a tangible sense. Like I can touch music all the time. I think about it all the time. Every time I walk down the stairs in the morning, I hear I'm singing a different song in my head. There's no end to it, Like the other day we were rehearsing and I had 4 of the girls from camp singing with me and I sang part of High Hopes to them. Well, they never heard that song before, and it was such a gas, but you got High Hopes, and they never heard it.
You've won so many awards. You've won so many awards over your career there, June. Which one are you very highly proud of?
Awards?
Yes.
I'm not really. I don't know. I don't even know what awards we've gotten. I don't really pay attention to that. I don't know. I don't really trust it, but I don't know. What awards have we? I know I've gotten some, but I can't remember. The Audio Engineering Society gave me a special award.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Different festivals, colleges, whatever, they've given me, plaques and whatnot. And that's really nice. But to me, the best feeling is when I am doing a gig and I'm in front of people and I can feel them reacting to what I'm playing and what we're singing. And I really think of myself as a songwriter. So there are a lot of songs I have that were written like 20 years ago that are perfectly for today. I wrote them ahead of time, I guess, and they're still intact. We did some of those songs this weekend. And it's really, it fills me up with whatever it is that you're supposed to be filled up with in this life, a pure vibe, a great feeling, a feeling that you're part of something that's way bigger than you and it, but yet you're in it, it's all that stuff. And part of the reason why I recognize all that is because of the Buddhist teachings. I mean, you have to, if you come next to a great teacher, they won't let you get away with anything. You have to notice everything. So I noticed that is what gives me one of my best feelings, is I know that I am also filling other people's spirits and bodies up with the music and the song and the whatever. When I play Ain't That Peculiar, which is not that often because not every keyboard, I don't always have keyboards on a gig. I can't do it without a keyboard, because all I play is that slide part in between the verses. It's not like I'm playing rhythm guitar.
Let's talk about your solo album real quick. That just came out in May of 2026. Home to My Soul.
Yeah.
Now, this is your first solo album since Snapshots in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that is fantastic about this is that all the proceeds go to the IMA programs.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about how this came about. What was your inspiration? How does this compare to Snapshots, or how is it different to Snapshots?
Well, there's one thing that happened that I found really fascinating. When we recorded Fanny Walked the Earth, there's a song of mine called One. And every time Gene and Brie and I got to the tag, we launched and it's hard to explain, but we became the Spelts. Every single time, the second half of the song, when we all knew that it was supposed to be fading, but we just revved up and became the Spelts. And I worked a lot with my nephew Lee, who is Gene, my sister, and Earl Slick's son. He's really fantastic. And I flew him out here from LA, and I said, listen, Lee, he was a second engineer on that project. I said, let's listen to one and let's see what's there. I know there's something there. Wow, we put it up, and it was, it really is the Spelts. We don't play like that anymore, but there it was on tape, 2 or 3 takes. So we just put it together real quick. And what was the first thing that came up? My slide parts on the outro. So that's how the whole album opens up, is with those slide parts that I didn't even know were there. It was just kind of an accident. There were a series of accidents that made this whole thing happen. I have one song called Gods and Foreign Strangers. Now, you have to remember, I grew up in the Philippines. I was born in 1948. That's just 3 years after the war had ended. And everyone was PTSD. Nobody even knew what PTSD was back then, but they had to tell me their stories. I was the first grandchild born after the war, and I was a girl. And everybody told me their wartime stories. And my dad told me a story about his getting sunk on the ship, the Hornet. And that was the Battle of Midway. And I wrote a song called Man from Vermont that's got slide guitar, and every word in it is true. It might sound a little bit like depressing, but it's actually not. There's a song on it called Home to My Soul that I wrote, I think in 1975, and I wrote it in Chris Williamson's apartment in LA. I think I was house sitting for her. And so I wrote that, and it's got her on harmonies, and it's got Jamie Sieber, who's really fantastic. She plays electric cello. So I got her to play electric cello on it. And there's a Fanny song at the end, because I'm the keeper of all the, little scraps of paper and the tapes. And I had the tape gig in Boston I think it was 1970, was at a college, and I had the tape, and my friend, who's a restorer, she restored that track for me. So it's got a really interesting shape to it. And anybody who gets the album, I really recommend that you listen the first time from the very beginning to the end, because I didn't even know how powerful it was till I was reviewing what we were sending to the manufacturing plant. I listened to the whole album. I went, holy shit, man, this is really amazing. It had a profound effect on me, because it starts off with the song that me, Gene, and Brie played on, and I just wrote the lyrics right away. It's called Fly High. So it has lyrics that references how we have to fly high now. We really do. That's our job. We can't just get bogged down by all the terrible things that are happening. So it starts with Fly High, and then ends up with Fanny. And so it has Bree at the top and Alice at the end, and all these great songs in between. So I'm really proud of it.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put the links down there, everybody. So if you go down below, the links for ima.org is down there. And so they have to, in order to get it, you have to go to the website, correct?
You have to go to IMA. It's the only place you can get the book. Of course, I don't put my records out on Spotify or anything like that because I don't really believe in it.
Yeah,
I don't really believe on them taking more money than they did in the past.
How is Jean going today there, Jean? I know her health hasn't been very well. Is she going okay?
Who?
Jean.
Jean? Oh, yeah. I just was talking to her before our phone call. Yeah, no, she's doing well. I mean, she did have her stroke, and one side is still not, working per se. But I think she's doing really well. She has 2 grandchildren. And of course, that is what, she lives for, she and her husband. I mean, they're fantastic. And her daughter, Marita's kids. Marita's the one who's taken all the shots of us in the past, 15 or 20 years. So
right.
They're
That's very good to hear. I'm glad to hear that.
Pardon me?
I'm glad to hear that. It's very nice. That's great.
Yeah, it is. I meant she even sang on that first song, Fly High. So we recorded it here, and then Lee was going up to LA, and I was from LA to Davis, and we were stopping through Davis, and I told him to just bring up some gear and let's see if Jean could sing on it. And she did. Right. So it's got everything. It's got everything, and I didn't actually cry when I listened to the whole thing, but I felt like crying. You know what I mean? I mean, it has so many elements in it that ring so true.
I have a question about kind of women's music. So you're a very important figure in that. What makes it special to you? And can you tell me about the establishment of it and, the impact that it has today?
Well, women's music was already happening when I met Chris. So I kind of just got swept into it. I mean, it was just this huge river that was raging, and I literally got swept up in the current. In fact, the second book that I'm writing now spends the first 5 chapters trying to explain how important it was and how it felt to me. I mean, people didn't really know it was happening. This is way before the internet, or nobody was passing out flyers saying, hey, listen to women's music, it's the next great thing. People were flocking to it because they needed it. They needed it. And I finally figured out, this is my theory, just the June Millington theory of women's music. I feel like so many souls, we made a pact with each other that we would meet in 1975. And it was pretty hot and heavy for 5 years, and then 10, 15. Now it's there's still a few festivals, but I feel like we made a pact to come in through a vortex, and we did. And we all met basically through women's music, and we got turned on to what was happening to us as women. That's the main thing. And I didn't realize it, but that's what I was heading towards when I left Fanny. I was heading towards women's music and Buddhism, and they both freed me up because they taught me so much. I mean, think of it, Gloria Steinem. Well, that's a name that, but there's so many other women who, Audre Lorde, thinkers and poets who were involved in that movement. It was a huge movement. And I'm trying to explain in the book, don't you know this happened? I mean, most people don't even realize it happened. It happened so fast. But we showed up. We showed up and we made a difference. And I'm still, IMA exists because of women's music. I was in a meeting at Olivia Records in 1975, and I was thinking to myself, man, I heard this voice in my head say, who's going to take care of all the young women who are coming down the road after this? And I basically said to that voice, okay, check, noted. There's nothing I can do about it now, but when I can, I'll. So the voices came back in 1985. And this is a true story. I was in San Francisco hanging out with Angela Davis, and I was telling her about these voices. I mean, it wasn't just one voice. I mean, there were like 5 or 6 of them during the day, and there were more during the night. They were like really concerned. So I told her about the voices, and she said, well, get started. And I'm like, what? Not me. I mean, I'm not an organizer, I'm a musician. But my partner, Anne, it turns out, she was running the Women's Center here at Hampshire College, and she'd always had an idea of starting, an alternative educational institution. So she's a huge part of IMA, and she runs it. And, I'm just like the one who just talks about it all the time.
It's funny.
What would you say are the most important women's music records?
Well, definitely Changer and the Changed. Have you heard Changer and the Changed?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so you should listen to it. It's still selling now, by the way. It's the biggest selling record of women's music. So that would be one. And there was an album I produced by Mary Watkins. She's a Black composer, pianist. It's called Something Moving. And I also produced Holly Near's biggest selling album, actually, Fire in the Rain. So I feel like those are really important albums. And also I produced Chris's second album after Changer and the Change, which is Strange Paradise, and that has a lot of great songs in it. I was really into producing for a while, so...
How long did you do production?
Well, I think the last album that I seriously worked on was Bitch and Animal. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're definitely in the alternative. They were on Ani DeFranco's label also. So the last album I did with them was Sour Juice and Rhyme, and we did that here. And after that, I can't really remember, because that was the year my mom died, so I can't forget. I'm
writing all these down.
Yeah, Bitch and Animal. That's a
Bitch and Animal. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was on Annie DeFranco's label, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic.
Well, I went with Ani to Italy for a month and taped all her shows in Italy. It was right after 9/11, actually. And these are the little things, or the little big things that I do for IMA. I just wanted to have her in the IMA archives, because at some point, a lot of people won't know who Ani DeFranco is. And I caught an entire tour of hers in Italy, and she's Italian. And every show was packed. I mean, it was like the Beatles, So that was really important and really fun. And Jill Sobule was a good friend of mine. And hopefully you heard of Jill Sobule.
I have,
Such a great artist. In fact, when she died, it was just a couple of weeks before she was supposed to meet me here. She's supposed to come here. We were in Hawaii. And the day that she was supposed to come here, I had to play a show in Northampton that was a memorial show. That just about killed me. I mean, but I felt like I had to do it in honor of her. She was such a great songwriter and so funny. In fact, Marita, Jean's daughter, turned me on to her way back when, 20, 30 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just a tragedy how she died too. It's just kind of shocking.
Yeah, well, Leah Kunkel too. She died. Do you know Leah? She was married to Russ Kunkel, the drummer, but she also was a singer, and she had a group called the Coyote Sisters. And when Art Garfunkel and tell me the other guy's name.
Paul Simon.
When they broke up, when Art went on the road, she sang with him. She was the only person who sang with him. So that was how good her voice was.
And she was
she was Mama Cat's sister. And I think she had a better voice, to tell you the truth. I mean, what a feel she had in her voice. Really incredible. Anyway, she died about 6 months before Jill Sobule, and that just kind of wiped us out, And then Evelyn Harris died not too long ago. You probably are not familiar with her, but she was in the group. What is the group? I'm not thinking about it. She was a Black woman, and she taught here at IMA, and she was really incredible. What a voice. So I feel like I've run into really great people in music.
Yeah.
lifetime. I'm lucky. I mean, Dr. John, I'd do anything to hang out with him. And I did. I would go, if he was in town, I'd go to his apartment. You know, I remember when he got married and he discovered methadone. He was all excited about it.
He discovered methadone. Nice.
Well, they just started giving methadone then, which meant that he could stop doing heroin. You know.
That's right.
Yeah.
Any plans to tour Australia there, June?
Yeah.
Any plans to tour?
Yeah, Australia. Come down under.
I would do it, but I don't get the offers. So I don't have a manager or publicist. So we basically just do it. I just do it because I have to. It's what I do in life. And if people catch up with me, great, fantastic. This is all part of it.
So you're working on your book now. What's the ETA for that? When do you want to have that out?
I'm almost to the end. I've finally gotten to IMA and we're doing a rock and roll girls camps. And right now I'm just, and a lot happened between 1975 when it starts. The book starts in 1975 because that is when the transition of rock and women's music for me and for the world happened. 1975 was the paradigm year, So I start there and now I'm in, in this century. And, I'll never forget that in 1999, David Bowie did that interview that was in the Millennium issue in which he talked about Fanny and said, resurrect Fanny and my work will be done. Well, I mean, you're not going to get a bigger, nod from a star than that. And I love David. He was a genius. He was a real genius.
Yeah, he was like one of your biggest champions.
Yes.
Wasn't Todd Rundgren as well?
I don't know. I haven't really heard him talk that much about Fanny, I mean, he was okay to work with, but he didn't want us in on the mixing. And I kicked the door down. I didn't want to really dictate anything on the mixing. I just wanted to be there, because I was so interested in the process. And he didn't want to let any of the girls in, and that really pissed me off.
Oh, that's so disappointing.
Yeah. Well, that's all. I mean, he's in the movie. And I saw him like last year at one of the gigs for we did for the movie, for the showing of the movie. So I guess that's all ironed over. But I do talk about it in the first book, Land of a Thousand Bridges, how the first day we chose him. I mean, we could have chosen Bernie Taupin, for example. He wanted to produce us. A number of people wanted to produce us. We chose him because we like, hello, it's me. We love that recording. So we chose him. But the first day of recording, it was winter. It was January 73. It was right before we went on the road with Chicago, by the way. And he lay on the floor on his back with his head on, like this. And he looked up at us and he said, I'll never forget it. And the other girls don't remember this at all. I remember it like it was yesterday. He said, okay, so I'm the producer, right? And we go, yeah. And he said, that means that I know more than you and you have to do everything I say. And we all went, yeah. I mean, what were we going to do? Walk out of the studio? I mean, he did know a lot, but, we could match him toe for toe, lick for lick. I mean, we've been with Jeff Emmerich at Apple. Todd wasn't any better than Jeff, I'll tell you that.
Well, Todd just had more of an ego. I would say that. But, you see, Skylark
with him, but that was tough for me. I hated that moment, and I remembered it forever. And the rest of the girls just, they just refused to remember that happened. It's like being in an abusive relationship.
I'm just curious. We're over an hour now, but I just have one final question. Anybody else has anything else they can ask? How was it did the band take it when you did make that break and left the band? It
was hard on all of us.
Because they did produce that next album on Casablanca.
Well, listen, I didn't just walk off. We had a band meeting in Liverpool or something like that, or London. And Jean and I had already spoken, and she was having a hard time too.
Yeah.
Not really about the band, but she was having a hard time. And we were both crying in the hotel room. And I said, listen, I gotta go, and she understood. And so we had a meeting, and I promised them that I would not leave the band until we found my replacement. And that took like another at least 8 months. We did a gig in Chicago, and we opened for her brother's band that she played with. And I'll never forget, we were standing by the side of the stage, and we saw her play, and I turned around, I looked at you, and I said, she could be the one. She said, yeah. So I pursued her for like 3 months. I just would call her incessantly, say, why don't you join Fanny? It would be really good.
And then I go. Yep, I didn't realize it took like 8 months. My God, yeah, wasn't a clean break.
Well, yeah, no, I
process.
Yeah, but I mean, what I said I was calling her for about 3 months. But it took about 8 months from the time we had that meeting, and I think our manager was pretty pissed off at me, because I remember everyone left the room, and then before he left the room, he looked at me and he said, I feel sorry for you, June. You're never going to make it. And the condition I was in right then, he was right. But I had to piece myself together. That's the thing he didn't realize. My job then was to piece myself together and become June Millington, become that authentic human being. He had no idea of that, It just never... That thought never struck him. He wasn't a Buddhist. He didn't. I mean, he had a lot of great advice, like you ought to save some money, stuff like that. But none of it was on the spiritual side. He might have had those spiritual thoughts, but I never heard them.
Yeah. Well, just sounds like to me. You had to do it. You have to be true to yourself.
You have to, and it was totally frightening, I must say, because I didn't know where I was going.
Yeah. Ashley, Angie, anything else before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I have a question. You did an independent movie too called Sugar. I've never seen it. How did you get involved with doing a bit of acting?
Oh, well, that's interesting. They contacted me because they wanted to get a hold of Jean. They needed to find a bass player, an Asian bass player, over 50 or 55, and they could not find one. They looked all over the U.S. and they couldn't find one. All they could find was Jean. So I called her up and I said, there's this movie that's being shot in New York. It's written by a woman. It's being directed by a woman. And it just was not the right time for her. So I just played the part. I do play a little bit of bass. So I just play the part. It's funny, because the woman who pretended to play lead guitar, her name's Danielle. She's really sweet, but she doesn't know how to play lead guitar. She'd say, where should I go for this? And when we were shooting a scene and she had to pretend that she was playing, licks. So that's how that happened. I wasn't contacted as a bass player for that, but I actually started writing this song called Stormcrossed. That's on Fanny Walk the Earth. It's a very powerful song. And I started writing that when I was making up my audition tape. So it's synchronicity. It happened for a reason, I feel.
Yeah.
All right. So my last question is, how do you feel, like you talk a lot about younger people being the future. How do you feel about young people getting into classic rock and the music of your generation?
Well, it's got to be fine with me, but it's really what feeds their souls. What is it that's touching them? What is it that's reaching inside and moving them? That is what is more of my concern, that it's authentic. And if they're really reaching for that, I'll go all the way with them, and we've had a lot of girls at camps. It's hard work. You can't make a teenage girl do something she doesn't want to do. You can't do it. So we have to seduce them. What I call it, seducing them into their own joy. And sometimes it's metal rock, sometimes it's the classic music. It's actually, usually it's not so much classic material, although I will say that for a few years, I Will Survive was really popular at camp. But so was Adele.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
All right, Ashley, got anything else?
No, I'm all good. Thank you so much for being part of this, June. Very much
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
so much. It was an honor.
You're so welcome. We could do it again sometime.
Yes.
Well, we could talk for 3 hours. Your life
God,
is just
yeah.
absolutely fascinating. I mean, we just touched the surface on everything.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, go down and check out the links down below for ima.org. That's down there. That's where you can get the new record. June, I don't know what else to say. I just appreciate that you came on the show, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Awesome.
Hopefully everybody else will like that. Please
Full of knowledge.
Oh, look, there you go. Ashley, is that the box?
Yes. Get yourself
The
this
box
one, guys.
set is impossible to get now. Oh, now that one's the European version. Yeah.
Yes.
I do have a
Yes.
question real quick before did you have much to do with that box set? Did they use you as, how much?
Well, we wrote the notes.
Oh, you wrote the notes. Okay.
Yeah.
It did.
See, they reeled us in.
Well, I mean, do they, like in a project like that, do you have to, who has the
Do we
right?
have say on the content? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, but the way it sounds to make sure that the artwork looks okay, do you have to approve any of that?
Oh, yeah, we had
You need
real
approval?
They had to send everything to us for us to vet it,
Okay.
which we
yeah.
pretty much did, because they were hard work and they were really into it, which I appreciate. I mean, anybody who's into Fanny and will put in a decent amount of work, I really appreciate.
Yeah. So get that. I wish we had something like that here in the States. But
Yeah.
it seems, well, June, it used to be here. We'd have Rhino would put out beautiful sets.
Yeah.
Those days in the United States are all gone for reissues pretty much.
Yeah.
All the reissue, we're on a tangent. This is a tangent. All the reissue labels seem to be in Europe. You've got Cherry Red, you've got Rock Candy, you've got BGO. They're all doing fine work, but here we had Rhino that used to do this stuff, and I could see Rhino taking the Fanny stuff and putting out a beautiful set, but we don't have it. But those days are gone.
Well, it's impossible to get,
What do you mean? What
Rhino did put out that 4 CD set. First time in a long time. They put that out in 2000.
That was on Rhino Handmade.
Yeah, Handmade. That's right. 2002.
And they only did how many did they do? 4,000 maybe?
5,000.
5,000? But, it's not like they put that out, just as regular. Yeah, that should have been.
What's really interesting is before they put out that set, I refused to listen to Fanny at all because I had such bad memories. Really? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And my mom tried to get me Jean and Alice and Toshi Regan, an artist who's a good friend of mine. Those 4 women were really on my case for about 3 years, and I would not listen to Fanny. And finally, I had to because they were sending us all the stuff they were considering putting on the 4 CDs. And there were lots of outtakes, take 50. And my dreams started to change. All of a sudden, there weren't weird noises in the house if I entered the house, and there were more rooms, and there was light, and there were people that I liked. So it did change me. It healed a lot in me, which is interesting because I realized Fanny was really good. I refused to listen to it and to remember. I just would not listen. I just would not. I was really stuck on that. I didn't want to go backwards. I wanted there to be a new June Millington, yeah. But now it's part of the forwardness of it all.
I think it's great. You come full circle, so to speak.
Fantastic.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, kids, give June some love. The links are down below. If you're new to the Rock Warehouse, Grant's Rock Warehouse, please subscribe. We have a Patreon if you'd like to support the channel like that way. We also have a Ko-fi. Buy us a pint or a cup of coffee. That'd be fantastic. We're just here trying to turn you on to stuff.
Yeah, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, June Millington. Thank you, June. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Good luck, and hopefully we'll talk to you again. See you,
Yes,
everybody.
let's do that.
Thank
Okay.
Bye.